feel like we might have some differing opinions. Because I have a whole take on posture that I think is a little bit Chris Ellis contrarian.
When are you ever a contrarian? I feel like you're just trying to be nice to everybody and then drinking coffee.
I don't argue for the sake of arguing. I just feel like I tend to be countercultural in general. I don't know if that makes sense.
Dude, those ribs the other day were so... I dream about those ribs.
I made them?
Yeah, when we were here with your brother. We're
hanging
out.
Oh, you're talking about...
This is like a couple weeks ago.
You're talking about Tulia?
No, the ones that you made.
Wait, did I do them on the smoker?
Yeah, you did them on the smoker, and then you cooked them, I think, on a pan or some shit. I don't know. It was
with the beef ribs.
Ridiculous, yes.
Oh, those are fantastic.
The only reason I brought that up is because I was thinking contrarian, carnivore diet, and then the lamb that your brother cooked, and then those ribs. It was
we cook it up. Yeah, once I discovered beef ribs, I'm like over pork ribs.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still eat pork ribs, but beef ribs are so much better.
So good.
Oh my god. Especially, they take a while. Like, what was it, like 6 hours maybe?
It was a minute. Yeah, it took a minute.
You gotta let that fat render, and man, they are just delicious. Welcome to the Move with Motus Podcast. My name is Dr. Christopher Ellis, and joining me is personal trainer John Williams. We are the owners of Motus Personal Training and Physiotherapy. Together, we will discuss any topic you can think of when it comes to training and rehab. From the carnivore diet to hip impingement, you can be sure that all your questions will be answered. Enjoy this week's episode.
Why'd you look over here like that?
You want to talk about your neck?
Yeah, so let's talk about posture.
Posture, okay.
So I'll say this about posture. I do think it's important.
Okay.
I don't think that's very controversial.
I don't know. A lot of people
all right.
on the gram these days saying posture doesn't matter.
Okay.
But go. Keep going.
Well, your body is designed to be in certain positions, right? We did not evolve with like desk chairs around us, right? So when we would sit, we would squat. And we would stand, we would mostly be standing, moving around all day, lying down flat on our backs or squatting. That was kind of our main modes of existence. When you do that, like when I was more of a trainer, I haven't trained really much at all in the past month, and I'm standing all day. My mid-spine, right? My mid-spine and my lower spine was much more capable at holding me up for long periods of time. Where I notice now as I'm sitting at my desk more, I'm slouching forward. And that still happens when I'm standing up. My whole neck area has gotten a little bit tight and uncomfortable as a result. I believe it's a result of that.
Okay.
Because of the bad positioning. Because a little more forward head. Because a little more kyphotic thoracic spine position. What are your thoughts?
Like, I got like 17 things to say.
I would love to hear it because I'm all ears.
Okay. So, I mean, there are a lot of therapists who are like, oh, it's all about posture. You got to sit up straight. You got to fix your posture. And I used to say that at the beginning of my career, and I realized that doesn't work.
Yes, and this is where I completely agree with you. I don't think it's just like, oh, just sit up straight. That's not what's going to fix your posture.
People tend to think that posture is the cause. I see it as a symptom of, or more like an indicator. Right. So if I see somebody slouches a lot, and they have this quote unquote forward head or upper cross syndrome, they like to call it, that just gives me an idea of where to go in my evaluation. Okay, if you're around the shoulders, let's see what your pecs feel like. They're probably feeling pretty stiff. Let's see what those mid and lower traps feel like. Oh, they're probably a bit on the weak side. So it's an indicator for me. It's not like, okay, you have to sit this way, squeeze your shoulder blades together, stretch your chest out, and that stuff doesn't work.
I completely agree with you so far.
Okay, good. So yeah, it's. I think people's thinking of it is backwards. They think that's where the problem starts, is the posture,
and then the fix is just like
reversing it.
Just be better with your posture.
Yeah.
When you sit in a chair, just sit up straight.
Yeah, it's just unrealistic. I mean, it's not unrealistic to sit in a chair for 8 hours, like in the perfect position. That's unrealistic. That's just not what, as you said, not designed to do. the whole tech neck or text neck, whatever people call it. I don't know. I mean, people make too big of a deal out of this thing. Is it good to be slouching down? Look, no, that's not good. I mean, you don't want to be hanging on your ligaments, right? So your muscles are supposed to hold your system together, your skeleton, right? But you can, get tired and fatigue. And then the passive structures of your body, aka the ligaments that are bone-to-bone attachments, like little pieces of duct tape holding your skeleton together, you can just literally like relax your head down and just hang on the ligaments. And then the ligaments over time, over decades, will get overstretched because they're not like a muscle, they're not contractile, like they're like a piece of tape. And once they become lax, they're lax. That's it. And now you've created instability along the spine. So that's just one example. If you were to take your finger and bend it backwards, as far as you can, and you did that for 10 years, you develop more and more laxity on that part, the front part of your finger. And then you're going to have an unstable finger. Mm-hmm. That's just how the body works. So I don't even know where I want to go with this. Right. So, there's an expression, your best posture is your next posture. I think I'm on board with that. Changing position often, I think, is probably your best move. Sitting up straight is, like I said, a little bit unrealistic to just maintain that.
What's your opinion of like a standing desk?
Great. Get up and down, get up and down. Good. Do it. Why not? There's an idea of reverse posturing that I like. If you're in a sort of spinal flexed position all day at work.
Which would be like, just that to the listeners at home who don't know what that means, just like hunching forward.
Yeah, like if you bend over to touch your toes, that's a flexion position of the spine. Leaning back like you're doing limbo is extension of the spine. So if you're spending 8 hours in flexion, well, you should probably spend at least 10 minutes in extension. You should go the opposite way, or else you develop stiffness into flexion. That becomes hard to extend the back. So I do like the idea of like taking some time to mitigate what you've done all day and sort of condition your tissues in the opposite direction. I think that matters. I think that's important. I will say with the whole forehead, head, neck thing, the biggest hole I always see is weakness in the front of the neck. So if you lay on your back and then you tuck your chin and lift your head just like an inch off the ground, for most people, it is surprisingly difficult. Their head's shaking. Like, this hurts. That feels horrible.
Yeah, like if you have people do like a glute bridge on a bench, and they're like, their shoulder blades are on the bench, and they're just like doing a hip thrust.
Yep.
People hate that.
Or just like a classic sit-up. Everyone has to put their hands behind the head to support their head. Like your neck muscles should be strong enough to support your head in a sit-up position.
Yep.
So if that muscle, the group of muscles in the front of your neck are weak, then it's really easy to fall into let's slouch. Let's let your big upper traps, the sort of hanging on the meat muscle, and all the ligaments kind of do all the work. So, I mean, if you have to sit for hours, you should train the front of your neck so you can be in a better position more often. I think that's the way to do it. Just saying, I used to give people my business card, say, put it here in front of your desk, like by your computer. You see my name, oh yeah, it's a cue to sit up straight. That's mildly helpful. It's really like you gotta strengthen your postural muscles.
Yeah,
like
and it's not sustainable just to sit upright. And I don't think it's a big enough strength, stimulus that being uncomfortable like that, like forcing that position, is actually going to solve anything. I think you have to do the longer term solutions, which is actually like strengthening these areas in an isolated fashion.
It's kind of like saying to get better at basketball, just play basketball, right? Like,
no, you have to do the drills.
You have to break down stuff and get real specific and
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, thank you. So kind of like what you're saying, like you've kind of fallen into a rhythm of sitting more. Okay, so now your lumbar muscles don't have to work as much, so they're probably not. Their endurance is probably declined somewhat, right? There's definitely some great back exercise. I mean, deadlift is probably, to me, the king of all.
And I was literally just about to
exercises for the back.
So let me jump in for a second. I was actually doing some pretty heavy for like where I'm at now, but not pretty heavy for where I should be.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some relatively heavy, like barbell hinges, just like an RDL, and my mid spine could not hold it. Like that's where I was struggling the most. It wasn't my hips. Like my hips could easily lift the weight, but I hadn't been deadlifting enough, and I'd been sitting in a chair. Doing more deadlifting really would have just solve the problem for me because I have to extend my thoracic spine,
Yeah.
which would be also retraction of the shoulders, working those mid-spine muscles. That's what I haven't been doing, and now I'm just like struggling to pull those
you
shoulder
probably
blades back.
developed a little bit of stiffness in your thoracic spine. The thoracic spine is a stiff part of spine, period, in general, right?
Yeah.
All the ribs attached to it. So it's inherently probably the stiffest part of your spine, but it's super prone to getting stiffer in a flexed position.
Yep.
So you might be even fighting, your muscles might be even fighting against the resistance of extending that part of your spine. So, I don't know if it's a stiffness issue or weakness issue or more likely a combination of both.
Yeah, I think it is a combination of both at this point.
Yeah.
What can people do to improve their posture?
Not obsess about it and just move more. That's the best thing to do.
I think that's a great, yeah.
Because we live in a flexed position, society, work on the muscles that do extension. So usually for most people, your posterior side of your body is going to be weaker than your front side. That's just a general pattern.
This would be the back side of your body, correct?
Yeah. So your hamstrings, your calves, your butt muscles, your back muscles, so just comparatively speaking to the front of your body, are going to tend to be weaker. So if you put a little more emphasis on that, as just a general principle, you're going to be able to stand up at a conference for longer. You're going to be able to sit at a desk for longer without, fatigue setting in and getting to like a slouched position. You're just going to tend to do better.
Also, if you think about like bad pelvic position, like having really good pelvic position, it just stacks your hips on top of your knees, on top of your ankles, and that is just like just one straight support beam, and your muscles really don't have to do all that much work to hang out in that position. I've noticed my ability to just stand isn't actually improved by me like being any stronger. It's just by me being A, more mobile at my hips, but B, just having better positions. Because when you do live in like an anterior tilted sort of position, the next thing that happens is you live in knee flexion, and then you live in a little bit of plantar flexion. So your like quads are just getting lit up. If you notice this, like when you're walking around, your lower back's all tight, and then your fucking knees hurt, and your quads are all tight. Well, it's probably because you're in some sort of bad position somewhere in the chain.
Yeah.
Having really good positions allows you to stand like forever because you're just stacked.
Yeah, a lot of my female patients tell me that wearing high heels solves their back pain, and because you're buying a little bit of that slack in the system.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but that's a workaround. You got to figure out the sort of underlying mechanism behind that.
I had one important thing to say.
Well, when I think of that, one of the most common things I hear in general with back pain is like, oh, when I bent over the sink doing dishes, my back kills me. It's like, that's not back pain. That's back fatigue. You're staying up straight. The back doesn't have to work that much. You're kind of like teetering in like a very neutral position. As soon as you bend forward, now that lever of gravity is working. It's trying to pull you down.
You're isometrically extending.
Yeah, your back extensors are fighting against your torso falling forward. And, think how long can someone hold a plank for? A minute, right? If you're sitting at the sink doing dishes for 5-10 minutes, like you're in an isometric position being pulled down by gravity and your extensors are fighting against. That's all that is back fatigue. Mm-hmm. So everyone wants me to massage their back. It's like, no, you got to strengthen your back. Either that or change your position more often.
Yep. Yeah, everybody wants to rest their back.
Yeah. No, strengthen it.
No, that's it should be able to hold you up all day.
It should be able to, yeah.
I do think there's a ton of value though in standing often and getting a standing desk and doing that. Like I said, as a trainer, when I'm just standing all day, like my position's better, and I even notice it when I go to work out because I'm just in better positions throughout my whole day, standing, walking around, and moving versus like sitting and slouching. My movement's then better in my exercises because I've been in a good position all day. Those good positions are now going to translate to my exercise.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get dogmatic about stuff, but like quality of movement matters, sort of. You know what I mean? So basically, there is the ideal way to squat, an ideal way to hinge, and things like that. But, if your knee caves in a little bit when you squat, is it a problem? I think what happens is you have ideal, whatever ideal might be, and the more degrees you vary from ideal, the more likely you'll, A, lose some strength from that movement, and B, down the road, maybe set yourself up for injury. Maybe. I don't think it's a rule. But if you come in and see me and I have pain when I squat in my knee, and I look at how you do it, and your knee's really caved in, okay, that's the point where it's cumulatively caused enough microtrauma that now it's producing symptoms.
Yep.
So some people can get away with squatting with bad technique their whole life. You can even train to squat with bad technique and still get away with it. So, ideal is a good thing to aim for, but I do believe that humans are very resilient, and you can basically train yourself to do whatever you want. Like the Jefferson curl is a perfect example. You know Jefferson curl, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Jefferson curl, like the old school PTs from like 2 decades ago would like cringe watching a Jefferson curl, think you're going to blow out your discs, right? So that's basically bending over, picking up a weight with like stiff legs and rounding your back. That's a Jefferson curl.
Yeah, then on the way up, you're pretty much unrounding one vertebrae at a time.
It's basically the opposite of like an ideal deadlift. Now, I totally think your body is capable of adapting to doing that movement. I wouldn't say go Jefferson curl 225 right out of the gate, but you could start picking up an object very light and progressively loading it over time, and then all the backside of your spine and the disc, the fibers will thicken up in response. It's like, oh, this person likes to move this way. Let's make this area stiffer. I think it is something you can adapt your body to do if you want to.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
The human body's supposed to be resilient. So in controlled settings, you want to try to move as ideal as you can, but out of those controlled settings, let's say you really like to play hockey, right? And you work out so you can be better at hockey. Obviously, you work out for other reasons as well, but that's one of the main ones. When you go to play hockey, you're not going to be in perfect positions all the time. It's a dynamic sport. You're going to be doing different things. But you should be training in such a way that you've built up resilience, so lacking optimal positions and perfect movement all the time is not going to necessarily cause injury.
I was just having I played hockey last night. I was just having this conversation because I'm on the bench with one of my buddies, and he's like, because he had back pain, and I told him, start deadlifting, and he's like, what? I thought I wasn't supposed to do that. I'm like, that's the best thing for you. So he's been doing it for months. He's like, wow, I'm totally sold. And another guy was like listening to the conversation. He's like, is deadlifting better, or is it hex bar deadlifting or deficit? I'm like, all the above.
All the above.
Variability is what you want.
Yep.
You want control in multiple positions.
Yep.
Here's what's interesting. When you look at like ENG studies, like when you study like muscle activation and say like pro golfers, you would think that the better they are at the sport, the more consistent the motor recruitment pattern is. It's just the opposite. Mm-hmm. They have more movement variability.
Yep.
So they have more ways to solve the same problem.
Yep.
That's what you should aim for. You should have multiple ways to pick things up off the ground and not break. So,
well, look at some of the best athletes out there. Like, they can shoot with both hands. They can rotate both ways.
Yep.
Like basketball players, they can dribble, they can lay up, they can do all these things on both sides. Because they're balanced, it makes their strengths more pronounced. Golfers, as an example, most golfers on the tour right now can probably rotate just as well to both sides. And if you watch them swing both ways, sure, like one side's going to look mechanically a little more awkward, but if you look at the foundations, it's going to be very similar.
Yeah. And the ones that can't rotate equally both sides, they're the ones that come see me because they got back pain.
Exactly. That's precisely it.
Well, I think that's a good spot to end it. What do you think, John?
Yeah, man. Obviously, we do one of these every single week. So as we're sitting here and signing off, I will say, see you next week.
See you next week, John. Bye. Do you have unexplained pain? Or do you wonder just how healthy you are? When was the last time you had your blood tested? Blood chemistry analysis is a great way to stay ahead of any health conditions, and now you can have control of your health with Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an incredible company that sends blood tests to your home. You can choose from over 30 different tests, whether that's liver function, testosterone, micronutrient, cholesterol, or C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. It's sent to you with free shipping, and you get results in 2 to 5 days, no physician referral needed. Use the code DPT20 for 20% off. Go to letsgetchecked.com and use the code DPT20. Thanks for listening to our podcast. If you have any questions you want answered, find us on Instagram at Motus Naples or send us an email. you can fill out a contact form on our website, which is motusnaples.com. Make sure to check out our blog and our shop as well, where there are downloadable programs that we'll continue to update. This is the Move with Motus podcast. We'll see you next week.